Good morning and welcome to this little practice this morning. Apologies, Mondays. Something just turned up for a couple of weeks, so I just had to find a slightly different slot for this sharing. But hey, so is life. So one of the main principles that I really love working with is yielding. I even love the sound of the word. It almost, even if you didn't know what it was, just from the sound of that word, it gives you like the idea and the feeling of its meaning. And so for me, it's about this reconnecting with our natural and innate relationship with the ground, with gravity, with the earth and the elements, and the way that we relate to actually not just the kind of down to the earth, but also even the space and our environment around us. And because of our kind of Western lifestyles, living in a concrete world, plus sitting on chairs, plus wearing shoes, plus, you know, all of the actual stories and dramas and challenges in life, they all kind of accumulate. But what happens is that over the course of our lifetime, every day, this innate relationship that we, that is actually in our nature with the earth, is being numbed down. And so there is a whole kind of natural intelligence that we lose through our day, every day of our life. We're conditioned to be holding ourselves up and tall and tight and out and pushy and strong and together. And all of that is like in the opposite direction of what nature is kind of designed, which is in this communication and flow with the ground. Like we are designed to be living on kind of a soft, earthy surface, very mobile and agile and with a lot of vitality. And so all of this numbing down and that loss of kind of our innate intelligence in the body has real neurological impact, and can lead to stagnation, can contribute to issues like chronic pain. Stagnation as such can lead to disease. So there's actually quite an impact just from that. It's not like the only cause of certain issues, but it's playing quite a significant role in it. So using our body-mind practices like yoga to reconnect with that nature in us and to kind of almost re-educate the body in that relationship, being in relation, because that's what we're designed to be, beings of relation. I think that's actually really one of the great, I don't like the word benefits, but it's kind of like one of the great gems that we can take out from our practice, and why we want to do this practice in the first place, but also why this practice can just be so supportive in our healing process. So I just want to, if you're up for it, if you want to come to the mat as well, practice with me. We're just going to do like literally 2, maybe 3 little things to even get an idea. And the thing is that, because it's kind of like the issue is like this conditioning and all of these holding patterns that we develop over, living in this kind of Western lifestyle. This has all become very habitual. And so what's happening over time is that the nervous system, as well as our connective tissues, they kind of just changed the norm and think that has sort of become normal. That's what it means that's what it means. Can't speak. That's what it means when something becomes habitual. So we don't even notice it. We're not even so aware of it. Otherwise, we would probably be changing it in the first place or straight away. So what does that mean? It means that this kind of undoing process and this reconnecting, even though like what we're going to do is pretty much just kind of lie down for a bit, what it might be seemingly so simple is actually really quite tricky for us to do, because we've lost that kind of the sensation of this in the first place, and we've lost the awareness of our connection with the ground. It's become habitual, so the norm has changed. So it actually can take quite some time, quite a long time, for us to kind of reignite that and rediscover it in our body itself. And so the process is not up here kind of understanding that from our head, because all of what I'm just saying, I'm sure, is making some kind of sense, if hopefully maybe not complete sense, but some sense. But the process of really embodying it in our being is a process that takes much longer, and can actually even be triggering or be uncomfortable or intense, because it's breaking you out of these kind of habitual holding patterns that also have become your comfort zone. But let's just lie down and see if we can maybe get a glimpse of it, or maybe even an amazing feeling of it. But if we just get a glimpse of it, then that is already amazing. So let's lie down on the mat. And as I lie down, I'll always have a little roll around first, and I invite my students to have a little roll around first as well. Might be a little bit silly, but actually just feels quite nice. So this is freestyle. You don't have to do it like I'm doing it. I like picking up my legs and arms and sort of just wave them around, but it can be really completely freestyle. You might end up in a little twist or even a stretchy thing. It feels a bit like a good morning stretch here for me right now. That's nice. It also feels quite massagey for my back. It's a nice way to even, like feel the ground rolling around on it, having that contact with the ground. It's also a nice way to check in with the body and actually notice whether there is any tension or how your kind of energy levels are this morning. Like, you're kind of fully energized or feel a little bit tired and exhausted. So it's a good little check-in as well. And then we can bring all of this in towards the center. Let's cross the ankles over for a moment and have one hand on each knee, so the knees can just fall out to the sides and hang back from the crossed feet. And let this become quiet. Maybe you want to close your eyes or soften your gaze and look into the distance. And we take a couple of breaths here, simply to come into our center. Maybe slightly deeper breaths if that feels nice. And you might observe even like a little bit more quiet settling in. And this quiet, this kind of stillness is very much related to our relation with the earth and our ability to yield. And so we're going to place the feet to the floor, but let's do one at a time. So I just let go of one foot and just let that slowly come down to the floor. And with that, I'm letting the pelvis on that side just kind of drop away towards the foot. So I'm feeling quite wonky through my structure right now, but this side of the pelvis is just trying to relax away to the foot. And then I place the other foot down, and with that, the whole of the pelvis is just falling away, tilting away towards the feet, and it's pulling me a little bit into a lumbar curve. And it's even pulling me all the way down through my structure. So to reduce that pull, I'm just lifting up my shoulders and bringing them down my back. So actually I'm sort of walking myself in a little bit to be a little bit shorter And that is encouraging this lumbar curve, which might feel potentially a little bit strange for you. It's okay. If it's not uncomfortable, then it will be fine. If it really triggers you, then change it. And we can have the arms resting out by the side of the body, palms facing up. You want to make sure that your feet are not too far away from you. So if you were to stand on like ice, for example, and my foot was out here, and I know it would just kind of, it would just slide away, and I don't want that feeling. I want it to sort of be a little bit more below my knees, a felt sense, not literally, but just a felt sense, so that the legs can rest more down into the feet. And then the other thing that we can try here is, if you just for a moment place your feet together, and then imagine you fell asleep, what would happen to your legs? They would kind of just flop out to the sides. So if you have your feet relatively close towards each other in this position, it means that you're actually having to sort of hold on quite a bit here in your inner thighs and your hips to keep the legs upright. So placing the feet possibly a fraction wider might give you just that little bit of extra stability here, and that means there's less work happening here, and we can rest down through the feet. And I shared this already in the previous video, but this way I can find a little bit more restfulness through the legs there. Feel free to close your eyes or soften the gaze, looking away into the distance. And we just simply take a few moments here. I call this like the undoing process. So what that means is that I don't really have to do anything at all. And that in itself can possibly be quite challenging if you are used to being active and doing something and performing and delivering and achieving. That's again kind of all of our conditioned patterns, and then suddenly be lying here and just not doing anything at all might not be that easy. Or maybe it's just a relief and you go, oh, thank goodness, I can just not do anything for a minute or so. Then enjoy. But just observe how this feels in your system. And let's get in touch with the contact, the relationship to the ground a little bit more. So we are resting on the ground through where we actually physically touch the ground. So zooming into that's the soles of the feet. Observe how you're resting through the soles of the feet. And can you rest a little bit more? And that's through the back of the pelvis. How you're resting through the back of the pelvis. Can you rest a little bit more? And at the back of the pelvis, that's not always that easy, and we're holding so much stuff and tension in the pelvic area. So a little trick here, I sometimes just use my exhalations, consciously empty the belly on that exhale and say to my pelvis, the back of the pelvis, the sacrum area, wide, 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 with the release of the breath. And just observe how that might respond. And then we've got the whole shoulder girdle. Let's take the arms and hands kind of as part of that. It's quite complex structure as a whole, but we're just going to make it one area. How you're resting through the arms, the hands, the whole shoulder girdle. And can you rest a little bit more? And again, in the shoulders, we tend to hold a lot of tension too, so maybe it might help to imagine that you're just sort of letting your arms fall away from you, behind you, like they could detach and they just go fly. Maybe you could just invite a sense of spaciousness between the shoulder blades. Allowing the sternum to settle back into the chest, away from the chin. Softening in the throat will help. Soften behind the heart. And then we have the skull and the back of the skull. How are you resting through the skull? And can you rest a little bit more? And so maybe you want to check in that we're not holding any tension in the jaw. So if your teeth are touching and clenching, then see if you can separate them. Maybe even open your mouth for a moment. Move that. Relax the tongue. It shouldn't be pressing up against the roof of the mouth, but maybe it can settle back into the bottom part of the jaw. And maybe you can let your eyes rest back into your eye sockets a little bit more. Like you're almost sort of stepping back inside your own head. Leaning back into a sofa, resting back. And then for a moment, and so the next bit really is more an attitude and a sensing. I don't really want you to move physically. I don't really want you to make an adjustment. Just pretend, basically, that you could feel the weight of your body distributed equally through all of those parts of the body that physically touch the ground. There's kind of almost like a little inner negotiation happening with that. Can you perceive your body weight distributed equally through all parts of the body that touch the ground? And let's take a couple of freestyle breaths. So that means slightly deeper breath, but any which way you like, through the nose or the mouth. With or without a sound. And then we're going to straighten the left leg along the floor. Right foot stays where it is. And I probably, I knew it. I needed to shuffle up a little bit more. Okay, so that left leg is just heavy on the ground now and really resting. And that left side of the pelvis is dropping down into the ground and is heavy. The whole left side of the body is just flopping and heavy on the ground. And then the right foot is going to do the work for us. So the right foot is activating a little bit and we are beginning to press down through the right foot. We want to try and make this very isolated effort here. I'm only pressing down a little bit. Observe how things are responding in my body. The right side of the pelvis is already beginning to float up a little bit off the floor. But then I pause and I just double check that there is no tension creeping in on the left side of the body. So consciously drop that left leg away, letting the left side of the pelvis drop more. I was definitely holding that a little bit. Left ribs, left shoulder, the whole left side of the body, really making that very passive and just resting into the ground. And then I go back to my right foot and begin to press down through the right foot, giving my weight down through that foot. It's a little bit like I wanted to stand up from a chair, which, you also just really shift your weight. So I'm just giving my weight down through that right foot, which then has this whole response in the body, the right side of the pelvis floating up, turning me to a little bit of a twisty thing. Almost a little bit stretchy, it feels quite opening. Pressing down, giving down through the right foot, and that's vertically down, so the foot stays flat on the floor. I make sure my right shoulder stays heavy. I can send that arm away, and my head is beginning to match that right shoulder, resting back into the ground. Checking that the left side is staying passive. Letting the pelvis rest back down, but not through the back of the pelvis now, but the side of the pelvis, obviously where it touches. So the relationship to the ground is changing a little. And let's anchor a little bit more down through the heel of the foot. That might just send us a bit more up through the spine. Up behind the heart, into all the way to the head. Let's take a freestyle breath here. And then we can slowly let the body settle back. Just letting it almost kind of melt back to the ground, reversing the effort of that right foot. And let's straighten the right leg along the floor as well for a moment. And we use the ground as a soundboard here, just to observe how does that feel in the right side of the body compared to the left side of the body. And we can scoop the left leg in and place the left foot on the floor. Knee comes up. Find the good supportive position for that. And the right side is now going to relax and just get heavy. So my right leg is just flopping out to the side. The right side of the pelvis is heavy. The whole right side of the body is just resting down into the earth. And then isolated effort is only the left foot that's beginning to press down vertically into the ground. And there is an instant kind of response. The left side of the pelvis is coming up. But then I pause for a moment and just check in that the right side didn't join in sort of somehow just out of habit. So really letting that drop. And the more the right side drops, the more the body can respond with ease here as we begin to really press down more through the left foot. That means the left side of the pelvis is really coming up now. Giving our weight down through the left foot. So I'm shifting from my center of gravity through the leg down into the foot. I'm just giving my weight away to the left foot. And the left shoulder wants to stay heavy. The head is just matching that and resting right back into the ground. Pressing maybe a little bit more into the heel of the foot that connects us up into the spine a bit more. Really passive on the right side, especially the pelvis. You want to check that it's just resting vertically down through where it's now touching, that there's no pushing through that thigh or the hip in some way. Let's take a deep freestyle breath here. And then we let the body settle back slowly and gently, like just melting the body back to the ground. Good. And then we scoop the right leg in as well and place both feet on the floor. Just kind of arrange yourself that you feel nicely settled again. Observe here for a moment, how does that feel? And maybe how does that compare to the way you were resting initially in this position? And what does it feel like now? You want to have the feet relatively close in towards the sit bones, but without creating any conflict or tension in the ankles. And let's see if we can, whether my shins are currently actually vertical in 90 degrees or not, doesn't really matter. But I just kind of have a felt sense of that. So if your legs were actually still at an angle, then we're going to just see if we can bring the shins a little bit more into a vertical axis. If they're maybe already quite vertical, I'm just sort of bringing them a little bit more over the center of the foot. So I'm just kind of bringing the shins a little bit forwards, changing the angle, and the knee will come up and over that. So my knees are going up and over towards the center of the feet. How the body responds with a tilting of the pelvis and a kind of scooping through the front body. So the belly is kind of dropping down. The lower back, the lumbar spine is really like dropped down into the ground now. I'm not lifting up, no? I have just, all I'm doing is just sending my shins forwards and my knees up and over that towards the center of the foot. And now I'm just hanging down from the knees. And it's a bit like, I'm calling this the hammock. So it's like I'm lying in a hammock. We can even use the hands here and just become really aware of this hollowing out through the front and the groins and the hips, the thighs here. All of that wants to relax. It's not any effort in this pose. Even the legs don't have to work so hard. It's no effort at all. Exhale, let the belly empty. That will help. Good. And then we're going to send the knees a little bit further forwards, over more towards the toes. And with that, we will be peeling the spine off the floor, one vertebra at a time. And as you exhale, keep emptying the belly. And really, in fact, let's only move the knees forwards on that exhale with the emptying out. So inhale, we pause, and we exhale, we empty out. And maybe we move the knees a little bit further forwards. And that's peeling the lower back off the floor. And I've kind of sort of reached the base of my ribs here, the base of the thoracic spine. And it kind of sort of feels like I can't actually move any further forwards with my knees now. It's not going to cut it anymore. So at this point, with the release of the breath, I exhale, empty the belly. I give my weight down through the feet. I just give my weight away through the feet and down. Again, like I'm wanting to stand up from a chair. Inhale for nothing. Empty the belly as you exhale. Down through the feet. And we peel a couple more vertebrae off the floor. Pause, inhale for nothing. Exhale, empty the belly. Giving down through the feet, and we peel a couple more vertebrae off the floor. Maybe we go once more. Inhale for nothing. Exhale, giving down through the feet. Into our bridge pose here. Let's take a deep breath in. And then we're going to retrace our steps and reverse the effort. So the first thing is to reverse the giving down, the pressing down through the feet. And I release one or two vertebrae. I pause, inhale. Exhale, empty the belly. Reverse the effort. Pause, inhale. Exhale, empty the belly, reverse the effort. We release one or two more vertebrae. And then at some point, it's also about bringing the knees back, right? So because if we were retracing our steps in the beginning, we were pushing the knees forward. So I'm getting to that point where I exhale, empty the belly, and I just bring the knees back through space to release the lower vertebrae. Until eventually the whole pelvis and the sacrum just want to settle here, and I'm releasing the tailbone away from me, and I'm returning to my natural lumbar curve, letting the pelvis fall away from me and rest. And observe here for a moment. How does that feel? Very nice. And let's bring the knees maybe into the chest. Have a little rock if that feels natural and good for you right now. And then we can roll onto our side and make yourself comfortable on your side for a moment. So that you can, we spent, I don't actually know how long, but quite some time on our back. And so it's nice to take our time here, let the fluid settle, let the body adjust to the change in direction of gravity. It usually takes about a handful of breaths, I think. And then at some point the body has that sense, okay, I get it. We can transition. We use the top hand in front of us and then slowly bring ourselves into our vertical axis again. And then let's just do one more little pose. So how would this kind of way of relating to the earth, this yielding and resting through our structure, finding this stillness quality, maybe related to a pose? And I like doing a downward facing dog for that. So let's have a go at that. So for the purpose of this, let's work with a really short stance. So I'm kind of really just starting from cat pose. And here in cat pose, you can kind of already get a good sense of what is your habit, where's your comfort zone. Is your comfort zone more at the sort of lazy, heavy, collapsing end? And you go, yeah, this is like where I like hanging out. Or are you more like a superhero yogi? And can we somehow find a little bit of a compromise between the two? Can you find a position where it's the least amount of effort, but you're not collapsing, but you're actually just resting through your structure? And let's tuck the toes under and sit back. Let's keep it relatively simple. And so when I'm in this position, I kind of want to do the same thing again. I just want to make sure that I'm not heavy. And heavy, the sign would be that you've got kind of quite an arch in your lower back and your belly is hanging out. So your organs are just kind of hanging off your structure. And you might feel like a heaviness in your wrist or a sort of shrugging up of the shoulders, somewhere like this. Or are you kind of all propped and pushy? Or are you maybe even kind of working very hard with the legs and sort of almost, not daring to touch? So that can also be a tendency. And you want to be able to just rest into the hands. See if you can rest the weight of the shoulders into the hands. Rest the weight of the shoulders into the hands. There's a quietening settling in with that. It means that the elbows are probably quite soft. This is not resting. But at the same time, as I'm resting that, you also notice that there is an ever so slight rounding happening here through my lower back. So that means that I'm gathered through my middle and not letting my organs just hang out heavy off my structure. And with that, again, everything is becoming pretty quiet on the inside. And just with this resting, notice how my arms are pretty much already in the position for downward facing dog as they are. So I don't need to change anything about that. I could just rest into them and open the legs out from underneath. And then if you find that you got yourself into slightly too short a stance, then feel free to walk that a little bit. That's not a problem. And also we can keep the knees bent, but I'm just resting into the hands and feet. There's no pushing, there's no struggling, there's no kind of overstretching. Everything is really remaining quiet, peaceful. And then when we come down, it's the same thing. I can just bend the knees underneath me and I'm still just resting through the hands to bring them down. Great. So it was really just to explore a little bit the idea. I'm kind of hoping that was making a little bit of sense. And even though we've literally just done like 3 little things, it's quite interesting to just observe like how that already feels in the body. If it's any different, if it's, I don't know, what it's kind of done in the way that you're holding yourself, the way that the sense of yourself where you're at right now. It'd be great to hear from you. Comment. Also, if you have any questions, also comment. we are going to be working a little bit with this on Saturday, the final discovery event for the language of the body, before that starts on the 27th of March. You chose this topic, the stillness within. I had put that out to the vote. It's actually a little bit more than just yielding. There's a different idea around the stillness within. It's this kind of fulcrum, this kind of point at the inside where, you know, kind of, maybe it's your true self, I don't know, but there's also, there's just no noise, there's no conflict. It's where we hold our blueprint in a way. It's from where everything can expand and relate out, but also from where everything returns back to, and where the kind of full potency of the expression of life lies. And so we're going to do a practice really trying to come home to that, and naturally a little bit of yielding will be part of that. So that's the Saturday afternoon. It's a pay what you can event, and it's on my website. I'll post it below the video. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you so much for joining, for practicing. But yeah, the main thing is I would really love to hear back from you on how this felt for you in your body, what you're observing with this kind of approach to practicing. Love your feedback on that. So please comment below. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a good one.